Welcome to Balancing the Scales, the Economic Justice Report. This is your host, Vic Bernsdorf, and on today's show, we're going to be talking about these topics. We'll talk about Finland, which is the world's happiest country. We're going to be talking about why Republicans hate Medicare-For-All, and we're going to be ending the show by talking about the progressive policy ideas of Congressman Ro Khanna. The information for this segment comes to you from Insider.com, dated 2019, called Life in Finland, Happiest Country. Now, let's start talking about why Finland is so happy. So let me start by giving an overview. Finland came in first place as the happiest country on earth based on the 2019 World Happiness Report. Okay? That's a report, many reports that the UN puts out every year. The people in Finland enjoy universal health care and a successful school system, both of which contribute to a higher standard of life for all Finns. Okay? In fact, actually, there's 4 Nordic countries that are the happiest on earth. Where's the United States? Probably thinking, well, where is the United States? I'll tell you where it is. It's number 19 in the World Happiness Report, down from number 18 last year. Now, that should give you pause to think. Next time you hear someone say, the U.S. the greatest country on earth, right? I've been hearing that ever since I was 6 years old, okay? Back in the 60s and 70s, part of the 80s, maybe we were. But those days are long gone, folks, okay? Now back to Finland. So what makes the Finnish people so happy? Well, let's watch a video clip, and we'll come back and talk about it.
In Finland, it's been this kind of rule that you don't talk about money that much. It would be considered bragging if you would tell about how much you make, etc. And still you find many people, even young people, that wouldn't tell you how much they make. So in Finland, you don't pay anything for university. I mean, maybe some books or something. I don't pay basically anything on my healthcare. Of course, when I pay taxes, some of that money will go to the healthcare. Finland is the best place to have kids. The maternity leave is long. You get about 3 months with full salary, and then 6 months with 75% salary. And after that, even so after 9 months, you still have a possibility to stay home if you want, but then you get about 500 a month.
Did you guys happen to catch that little pie section of how much she pays for her monthly health care? $11, folks. $11. That's like out of pocket. Because most of it, what I don't know, 200 or so, whatever it is, those are after $1. Those are after tax expenses that she was showing you. But it's not a lot. It's like $250 a family or whatever. Every situation is different. I just want to just show that $11 after taxes, right? And what do we pay? You don't want to know what I pay, folks. A lot of people pay thousands of dollars per month. Okay, but let's keep going on this topic of why Finland is the happiest country on earth. So let's take an in-depth look now why that is. First of all, Finland has no private schools. Period. No private schools. Every academic institution in the country is funded through public tax dollars. That's number one. Number two, children have more playtime at school and receive hardly any homework. I remember in 6th and 7th, 8th grade, man, I had hours of homework. Hours of homework. Didn't make me a better student, I don't think. I passed high school, passed middle school, but anyway. Then Finnish kids learn life lessons at home with the family. And those life lessons are considered as important as schoolwork. So that's part of the reasons why they don't give out much school, so you can learn from your family. Grandmother, grandparents, parents, right? In Finland, preschool and daycare are both universal until age 7. Finnish people pay nothing to go to college because education is considered a human right. Tuition is free for any student accepted into a college or graduate program in Finland. Okay, now, let's take a personal look into Finland through the eyes of an author that published a book called a Finnish author, obviously, and she wrote this book, The Nordic Theory of Everything, in Search of a Better Life. So, her name is Anu Betterman, and she's being interviewed by Mr. Friedman. So let's get a part of this interview to see how Miss Anu Partinen talks about her life in Finland and why it's so great. What do they do differently than what we Americans do here? So, Mr. Friedman asks, many Americans might say, this all sounds great, but you guys are paying sky-high taxes in Finland. We don't want anything to do with that. So, he's asking her, how would you respond? This is what she says. Anu Partinen, and I quote, first of all, taxes are not necessarily as high as many Americans think. One of the many myths I encounter often is that Americans are like, you pay 70% of your income in taxes. No, we don't. For someone who lives in a city like San Francisco or New York City, where you have federal taxes, state taxes, city taxes, property taxes, the tax burden is not very different than the tax burden in Finland. Okay? I discussed my own taxes in the book, and I discovered this to be true, that I did pay about the same or even more in New York than I would have paid on my income in Finland. I talked to many Nordic people in the US who say the same thing. End of quote. Yeah? So, what's the takeaway for this segment about Norway? Why is it the happiest country on earth? She goes further. I'm not going to include a discussion, but she does talk about something that's very important. Whenever you hear Republicans talk about how high taxes are in European countries, well, as she goes on to say, there's no point in discussing tax rates unless you talk about what you get for your taxes. What do you get for your taxes, right? That's why Republicans never talk about that part, because except for Social Security and Medicare, we get almost nothing important, that is, for our taxes, okay? Us Americans pay less taxes on income than Nordic countries do, but we pay after tax for really expensive, what? Daycare, healthcare, college tuition, long-term care and retirement, so forth and so on. All the basics in life, all the essentials, are really expensive in this country. They don't have that issue in Finland. Okay? Nordic people pay for those systems and programs through their tax system. So they're way less expensive than we pay. Because for those life expenses, like I said, it's all paid through the tax system, so the profit motive is removed. Okay? Again, the bottom line here is that Finns have more peace of mind and more money after paying taxes, even when they just make a little bit of money, because life's necessities are taken care of, again, through their tax system. Okay, let's move on now to our next economic justice story in the news, why Republicans hate Medicare-For-All. And this segment will be coming to you from, part of the information I get is from truthdig.com. And let's watch this clip. Interesting back and forth between a Republican doctor talking to Ali Kashvili, which is a commentator who happens to be Canadian. Let's check it out. We'll come back and talk.
We're about to approve something in the next day or two from Congress that'll exceed $2 trillion, which, as you know, would probably cover Obamacare and all student debt in the country. Are we cool with the idea that we should probably be spending our money on universal health care at this point as a medical professional?
Well, what I hope we don't see is universal health care, is Medicare for all, come about as a result of a crisis. I don't want to see us have socialized medicine as a result of a crisis. And I certainly don't want us to have socialism as a result of a crisis. There are people in need.
But Congressman, hold on. You're talking to a Canadian, right? You're talking to a Canadian. 50, I'm just guessing here, top of my head, 58 countries in the world, all of which are highly developed countries, have universal medicine, many of which were brought in by conservative governments. Actually, a conservative idea. In the United States, it was first floated as a conservative idea. In Massachusetts, it was done by a Republican conservative governor who's now a member of the Senate. Universal health care is not at all a liberal concept. It's not a socialist concept at all.
Well, unfortunately, it's a concept that doesn't work. And all you have to do is look into those countries that have it right now, and you'll see that they are not getting the type of health care that we get here in America. If you're sick anywhere in the world, where you want to be is the United States of America, because we have the best health care system in the world. We have access to prescription medications that those countries that you speak of don't have access to. That's the kind of thing that we're talking about here when we talk about socialized medicine, when we talk about Medicare for all.
I mean, look, with the exception of cancer outcomes, there's no outcome in the United States that is better for a multiple of what other OECD countries cost. But if we do have the best health care system in the world, why have South Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong, Japan, and Taiwan all handled this better than we have?
Well, folks, it goes on, and Mr. Carter, Republican Mr. Carter, could not answer that question. You know, folks, it really looks like we are not the greatest country on earth anymore. And, you know, it hurts me to say that. Why? Because when I was like 14, 15, 16 years old, I was really proud of this country. I was happy to be an American. I was born in New York City. My father used to call me a 200% American. I love this country so much. Those days are over. But let's get back to this segment of this show. Look, let's give you an overview of what's going on, okay? Since Republican ideas, okay, and policies only support corporations and the rich, the Republicans need to find ways to win elections, okay? Since the rich don't constitute that many votes, okay? So in order to win elections, Republicans have to resort to voter suppression to stop the poor and middle class people from voting against them, okay? That's been going on for decades, since the 80s. For example, in 2016, 2 million Americans tried to vote but were turned away for lack of the proper ID, okay? And in the run-up to 2012, Pennsylvania House Speaker Republican Mark Turza, and I remember this clip, he declared, I quote, "Voter ID, which is going to allow Governor Romney to win the state of Pennsylvania, done," end of quote. Okay? Folks, Republican voter suppression efforts are destroying what's left of our democracy in this country. Actually, it's turning into an oligopoly. There's not one already. So don't let them get away with it, okay? Let's take an in-depth look now on what's going on here, really. The Republicans have always opposed a national health care program for the U.S. What you just heard from Mr. Buddy Carter, a Republican from Georgia, a Republican congressman from Georgia, those same talking points originated from the 50s, and they kept going through the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, 80s, socialism, 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 okay? It's just not true, okay? They can't come up with any original ideas. They don't know what else to say. In fact, if you ask them to define socialism, they'll get it wrong. Okay, because what it means at its heart is that the people are the ones who benefit from their government. Okay, taxes are used for the benefit of the people. Okay, but let me keep going now. Like I said, Republicans have always opposed the national health care system in the U.S. Why? Because they hate nonprofit systems. Period. They think that all services in this country should be privatized and respect that someone has to make a profit. Someone has to make money off of you, okay? Folks, we're the only developed country in the world without a functioning, affordable healthcare system, okay? But you know what? Medicare for All's popularity now is well over 50% and growing among voters across both parties, especially because of the previous recession and now the coronavirus, okay? So as Medicare for All is becoming more and more politically popular, it's scaring the heck out of the Republican Party. So they have to keep Americans from voting for it any way they can. Okay? And you do that by preventing us from having a Canadian system. Why? Because with the national ID system in place, like they have in Canada, right, there is no need for voter registration, and therefore no way for the GOP to cheat and purge voters. Okay? So what's the takeaway from this segment, okay, folks? Never forget the Republican opposition to Medicare for All revolves around their belief that everything from water to wastewater, like I just said, water to wastewater to roads to prisons to health care, should be run to make someone rich and to hell with the public good. That's what they believe, okay? And so if Medicare for All would become a reality in this country, with Americans using a free national ID card, this would cause three problems for the Republican Party. Number one, it would kill off one of their major donors, which is America's for-profit healthcare industry. It would prove to the American people that a non-profit healthcare system is the best way to go because it's cheaper, works better, and is more effective to fight pandemics, especially now, right? And it'll flip Congress in most states back from Republican to Democrat. And that's what they hate the most, okay? Okay, let's go on to our next segment. Okay, folks, so I wanted to end the show today by spotlighting progressive politicians. In this case, I'll be talking about progressive Ro Khanna, a Democrat in Silicon Valley here. And I wanted to, you guys listen to him and compare him against Mr. Buddy Carter, who you just heard a few minutes ago, because this is the kind of candidate, folks, that we need to do what? To get us to be number one, okay? To get us to be the greatest country on earth, to be the happiest people on earth. That's how you get to be. That's one of the characteristics of being the greatest country on earth. If the citizens are the happiest people on earth. So we need these kind of progressive politicians like Ro Khanna to get us to enjoy life like they do in Finland, to have incredible programs, to have incredible healthcare programs, school systems, long-term care, child care, parental leave, all these systems, you need to have the government involved, okay? And people like Ro Khanna are the people which will get us there. So let's watch a clip and I'll come back and talk about it.
Unions are important all the time, but boy, you see this in a crisis. The importance of having worker representation. Someone that a worker can go to and say, hey, what's happening here isn't right, or here's what we could do together to make this stronger and safer. That's what unions are there for, and we need to protect them during this pandemic.
And you know, I was outraged. I don't know if you saw this story, Senator Warner, with Instacart. They've set up their app in a way that people could say they were going to give a large tip, and then when the Instacart driver delivered their groceries, they would reduce the tip to zero. I mean, basically wage theft, as I see it. And so we need to make sure these people who are risking their lives to keep this economy going are getting hazard pay. They're getting some pay acknowledging their work. To me, that's free market.
And one more part, making sure that people's medical expenses are covered.
Absolutely. I mean, we're in a healthcare crisis. We ought to be able to provide people with healthcare. And you have a lot of these folks, they're independent contractors. They don't have healthcare benefits. And so they aren't able to go to a doctor or get testing if they need it. If there was any time in our country's history that we need to say everyone should have basic healthcare, it's during this crisis.
Okay, folks, so now I'm going to read to you some of Ro Khanna's positions on issues across the board. It's an incomplete list, but I want to give you an idea of what kind of candidate or what kind of congressman we need to get us to the point where we can have economic justice. Like I said, this is what this whole show is about, to achieve economic justice. So you can have more money in your pocket so you can enjoy life more and do more things. And when you take your last breath, you said, hey, you know what? I really had a good life. It was because so-and-so and so-and-so, these congressmen, they had my back and they went to bat for me. Okay, so let me read off some planks. By the way, the information now comes to you from rokhanna.com. It's a really good website, very exhaustive website with his positions. Go out, check it out, rokhanna.com. So let me read to you some of his positions. Number one, he supports increasing the minimum wage. He supports quality universal preschool. He supports developing alternative energy to reduce our carbon footprint and tackle climate change. He supports Medicare-For-All and remains committed to making it a reality, which is great. It's needed right now with COVID, right? He supports legislation that will allow Americans below the age of 65 to buy into Medicare. He wants to make sure that every senior gets every penny of the benefits that they worked for, and opposes efforts to slash Medicare and Social Security. And he supports legislation to allow Medicare to negotiate for more reasonable drug prices. He wants to implement mandatory paid sick days. He wants to prevent racial profiling. And he wants to institute mandatory paid parental leave, which is so important, folks. It causes a nightmare without it. It has been causing a nightmare for parents in this country. So it's progressive Democrats like Ro Khanna that are really trying to make America great again by fighting for issues that will improve the lives of the 99% of us Americans. Okay? So let me know if you have an issue with any of Ro Khanna's positions that I've just mentioned or listed on his website. Okay, so let me talk about my next show. Next Thursday, I make videos once a week on Thursday. On next Thursday, I'm going to be talking about the UN World Happiness Report for 2020, why Republicans hate the ACA or Obamacare, and why we need Medicare for all. Yeah, I'm going to still be talking about Medicare for all because this pandemic, you know what, we really should have had that in place a long time ago. But those are the 3 topics I'll be talking about. Well, that's the show for today, folks. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something new. And now you know why I always end the show by saying, you deserve the government you vote for. Have a great day.